without further ado, let's go into our final sprint. It's going to be another. We're going to have 20 minutes of templating in Handlebars, and then we'll have a guest lecture on Meteor. I'll give you guys a short spiel on Meteor, but the guest lecturer probably will be able to give that much better than me. So, first things first, let's just have a very quick recap of what happened since Monday till this morning. So Tuesday, we kind of learned what makes a web page, what kind of files your browser uses to render the pretty images and texts that make up your screens right now. And then Wednesday, we learned how to send the correct web page files to the browser so that we're able to render the correct web pages. And this morning, we also learned about how to store information in a more persistent way so that even if for some reason our server that sends us our web pages crashes, no information would be lost, so all the information would be stored on some disk, and how we can make it possible for any kind of web server to be able to have this kind of persistent data storage. Okay, so this lecture will be templating in Handlebars, and after that, a short recap, I guess, of what will happen in the next few days. So tomorrow, we won't have class because Mystery Hunt. If you guys are doing it, good luck. If you guys are not, you should still check it out. It's a pretty cool event, pretty hyped too, so yeah. Okay, and then Saturday and Sunday we'll have Milestone 1 project pitches. As you guys all know, y'all should have submitted Milestone 0 last night. I think there are a couple of logistical things like us failing to make the hyperlinks click correctly or something, but sorry about that. But Milestone 0 should have happened. We will create all of your GitHub repos, as well as send you guys feedback on your the top 3 of your 10 ideas. So yeah, this should happen hopefully by tonight. There might be a couple of stragglers that may be stretched into past midnight, but hopefully we'll figure all the details out. And after that, Friday mornings, basically tomorrow morning, we will send out the signups for Milestone 1. So more details on how Milestone 1 will work out. So the basic spiel is you will be pitching one idea. It can be one of your 10 ideas, but if you just want to scrap all of them and get a new one, that's fine too. And you pitch it to some of us staff members as well as some of the sponsors who will give you feedback on them. And we also require you provide us with 1 or 2 wireframes of what your website will look like, a couple of pages. If it only has 1 page, that's fine too, but you can go as detailed as you wanted to, but the minimum requirement is at least 1 web page's view in a very rough sketch, basically. You can use whatever app, you can use your drawings or anything, it's completely up to you. And when we say we will give you feedback on your idea, what we mean is we could suggest useful APIs that you may or may not know of, which could help you maybe like bootstrap your application and maybe help your development. We could also talk about potential technical difficulties that you may face because when you are not really experienced, you might think some things would be a lot simpler than they are, but turn out that they're not. And if there are anything like tricky gotcha moments that you may face, we probably will try to point them out so that you have the heads up in advance. And also maybe we'll have like a moment where, oh, this kind of feature could help your web app. Maybe you already thought of it, maybe you didn't think of it, but hey, if you have one more idea that you could go off of, maybe it's going to be useful. Moving on the more logistical side, project pitches will happen in 32044, that's in the basement of Stata, from 1 to 5 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. Each project pitch will be 15 minutes long. You guys sign up as a team, so you just need to sign up once. And we'll request you guys to arrive 15 minutes before you're up so that we don't end up straggling after 5 p.m. and making everyone sad. Oh, tonight? Sorry, that's tomorrow. Okay, so with that done, let's also talk about a little bit what will happen next week. Next week, Monday, no lecture because Martin Luther King holiday, so we lose another day of lecture. Kind of bummer, but it's okay. And most of next week will be a lot of guest lectures on useful libraries, services, APIs that you all could use and in some cases should use for the specific functionality of your web app. A lot of them are really cool, really useful in very specific use cases, and if you want to implement any of those features, you probably want to show up to these guest lectures, and maybe even, if you're lucky, we'll be able to get a contact from the sponsors who might be able to help you with their specific API usage. Apart from that, we have one lecture and one workshop led by our staff members, which will be on authentication and security. We strongly encourage you guys not to miss this lecture no matter what, because doing authentication on Express apps can sometimes prove to be very difficult due to the fact that the documentation is kind of questionable in terms of quality in some places. And as a last note, you guys probably want to start working on your projects and start building some code, maybe some testing, trying to build some prototype apps starting next Monday or early in the week. That's like a recommended date where you start. You could have started already, that's fine too, but this is like, if you haven't started by this time, you probably might want to start, would want to start feeling a little bit nervous. And finally, we have hackathon night on Friday. So this is going to be from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. It's going to be a lot of nice snacks, staff, and some sponsors who would be able to help you out, with any questions. It's just going to be 5-hour long ops hour extravaganza sort of deal. This is a very good place to sit down as a team and just have one specific goal to implement a specific feature for your app. It's a really good opportunity to kind of just sit down in the same place and work and just work. Okay, with those done, so let's move on to templating. So when we talk about templating, it's very important for us to have made sure that we know how our Express application's internal workflow works. So I guess I'll kind of draw a very rough sketch of how a web page request is rendered. So let's say you have your Express app running and it's up on a server and it's just listening for any requests. And let's say you're from your browser. to you make a request to some route. So when you make a request to some route, this request will make its way to the server, and then the server will, the Express app will process where this route's logic exists. It's going to go to your I think this is fine. Okay, so what will happen is this request will be read by your application, and then it'll go to the specific router dot probably get and some parameters here, and then there's going to be some executable code block over here. So once the router realizes, okay, I should redirect, run this code to respond to this request. So it'll run whatever code's inside here, and oftentimes it'll, at the very end, it will be have something like res dot render, like index or something. This can be anything, it can be something else, and some JavaScript object, and this is going to be the end of the function. So what this thing does is it says, okay, find a template called index in your view directory of your application, and associate that template with this JavaScript object, make an HTML file, and send it to the user. So stop. Okay. So what's going to happen at this point is, okay, so I just said there are files in your views directory. Okay, can somebody tell me what is the extension of the files that are in your views directories of any of the prior workshop apps we've worked before? HPS. So in your views directory, there are going to be files called index.hps, error.hps, etc.hps. So we said render index, right? So when we say res.render index, what will happen is your app will look at the views directory and find this file called index.hps. And it'll recognize the fact that, oh, this is my template. And then here's the data that I should populate this template with, and apply those changes, and from that it creates index.html. This index.html will basically be the same HTML that you will see if you request localhost 3000 and the route specified by here. So you will send this index.html file to the client browser. So this will go all the way, let's say this is the server, and let's say this is the client. So the server just sent us index.html. Your browser receives index.html, and then it reads it. And then it finds some things within the HTML called link blah blah blah. It's going to require some .css file. It's going to have also some scripts that require some .js file. And once it requires these files, the client will make a request back to the server asking for these files. And once the client requests for these, the server also sends these files. And now you have your CSS file, your JavaScript file, and the HTML file, at which point you can finally render the page you want. Okay, so this is kind of the workflow. With that, we can think about why necessarily handlebars and what is this templating business we're talking about over there. So what handlebars and templating in general provides is you get your code on your server side to be a lot more structured. It's a lot easier to read, and it's much easier for the developers to work on this code, and also bugs usually, like, it's a lot harder for bugs to creep into your code. And B is devs are lazy, so we get to write this code. So let's look at what I mean by these two bullet points. So a static HTML, let's say it looks something like this. And what we mean by associate some kind of JavaScript object as the data is, let's say we have, like, imagine we would have dynamic HTML, where we have something like this, and these two are just to be filled in, like a template. And Handlebars does exactly this. If you write, in your Handlebars file, if you write something like this, in these double curly braces, because if you rotate them, they kind of look like mustaches, and associate this JavaScript object with them, your Express app will generate this HTML on the server side and then throw it to the client side where it would be able to be rendered. So the power of this is you don't have to write something as ugly as this, where you are using pure JavaScript to build HTML in this very messy way. It's just really ugly. So by having this sort of really nice way to represent a template, you're avoiding the hassle of writing something like this, and as you can see, because of like the fact like this looks this ugly and like a lot of code, you'll probably run into bugs and you'll run into scalability issues once the problem, like once your pages start getting bigger. Okay, so with that really short introduction, let's run into like look at different sort of things Handlebars are also capable of doing, like small blocks of logic. For example, Handlebars are able to run conditionals, so you can have something that looks like that. So let's look at what this says. If is logged in, you have these two lines. Otherwise, you have this line. So what does this mean? Let's say you have this Handlebars and you associate it with this JavaScript object. What will you see what will your .html file look like? Will it have the profile? Will it have log out? But it would not have log in, right? Because it's going through like the if else state clause and it's deciding to not render this part, which is really cool. So you'll have something that looks like this. Okay, and another one. Handlebar, a foreach method. Sorry, like, I don't know what to call it. Let's just look at it. So for each recent comments, do this, and end of each. So what this means is it assumes recent comments is a JavaScript list, and then it'll repeat rendering these two things until recent comments is exhausted. So let's say we have recent comments to have something like this. So what would be rendered in the .html file? What would be the first line? Yes, Monday. And what would be the second line? It would be foo. And then the third line would be David, and the fourth line would be bar. And just like this. And suddenly you're able to, let's say this recent comments has, say, 100 terms in it. In which case you're only writing 4 lines of code for 400 lines. No, sorry. That's 100, so it's 200 lines of HTML. So this is like the scalable way of populating a table, say, on your client side. You don't actually write 100 lines of code, right?